Hi everyone! For those who don't know me, my name is Femininely. I've been part of the wargaming community since 2015, shortly after the game just launched. I've had a really varied past in World of Warships. I started as just an ordinary player. Then I became a super tester. Then I became a community contributor. Then, believe it or not, I actually worked for Wargaming North America for almost 2 years. Nowadays, I'm just back to being a regular community member just like you. Now, despite my long and varied history in World of Warships, I'm pretty aware of certain situations that has been happening recently, which we will just name the Yukon debacle. Now, many of you have reached out to me and asked me to express my opinions or my thoughts and feelings about what's been happening. So I thought I'd take today to give you that opportunity to hear my thoughts and feelings on what's been going on. The gameplay you see behind this audio recording is just some random gameplay they found that I thought looked interesting, just to give you something to watch as you listen along. I am going to start off this video with a few disclaimers, just to cover some bases for you all. What I am sharing during this video is very much just my thoughts and opinions. They do not reflect wargaming, they do not reflect other community members, other community staff, or any of the sorts. They are very much my opinions based off what I've seen, what I have read, and what I have been told. I'd also like to add, I have not received any information about the situation from any current wargaming staff. I made a statement on a stream recently that may have been misinterpreted as this being the case. It is not. While I remain close friends with Karma and other wargaming staff, since leaving wargaming, we've only reminisced about the good old times before I left. Our friendship isn't dependent on ships. So we're typically talking about life, the universe, and sometimes even boys. What I meant by the statement I made was that I'm still close to many NA and some EU community contributors, many of which provide, voluntarily I should say, me with non-NDA information about stuff occurring behind the scenes. Many do this as they are interested in my opinion on situations and whatnot. I have had very little contact from wargaming in official capacity since leaving back in February 2020. If you follow my stream, you would have known what these communications entailed and what happened in those situations. But now is not the time to go into this. So let's talk about the Yukon situation. And it may sound like I'm reading from a script, and that is, I kind of am. I wrote down all of my thoughts so I could chronologically lay them out in an order that make sense. So let's start from the beginning. I remember this project being talked about and started just before I left wargaming in late February 2020. It was early days, but the idea came from wargaming looking to support more local and nationally recognized holidays in relation to the regions that each server supported. The C server had recently celebrated Lunar New Year with the Yukon and Baji bundles and captains. If my memory serves me correctly, these were ideas and concepts that came directly from the C server players. GPI, also known as Global Player Interaction, were pleased with the initiative that the team had put into this holiday period. For those who don't know, GPI is the department that stands between the community managers and the community departments, and the developers is the best way to explain kind of where they sit in the scheme of things. Internally within Wargaming NA, we are in agreement that Wargaming were and honestly unfairly critical of the NA team and our efforts. In an attempt to replicate something that was widely celebrated by Russia, NA set off to work looking for opportunities to celebrate our assigned regions. For those who don't know, the NA server services USA, LATAM, Canada, and Australia, and look for some of the most important holidays and dates for these regions. Due to the quick turnaround, which was about 2 months, while it was a smaller event, an early example of our efforts was the Anzac Day celebration items, which included a flag, patch, and contest weekend. I was directly involved with these efforts. Funny story coming from this is originally the Anzac flag had the traditional slouch hat folded the wrong way. We did get that fixed. This project was pushed forward by myself, having lived in Australia most of my life, but was completed after my leaving. With Canada Day being a solid 4 months out, there was a greater opportunity to do something bigger for Canada Day to help bring better representation to our friends in the North who at the time only had the Haida in the game. While 4 months out meant there was definitely not enough time to create a new ship from scratch, luckily, many Canadian ships were very close to the English designs, so there was a good chance of having something altered in time to make the July 1st deadline, roughly about 4 months. Naturally, knowing I was soon to provide my 2 weeks' notice, I bowed out, decided not to touch this project, but I knew the basics about it before I left. Basics including that Nizanao was talking to Little White Mouse and Chobitsu about gathering ideas for celebrating Canada Day with a ship, flag, event, and patch perhaps. So then I left, and as I mentioned, I didn't talk to any wargaming staff about current or ongoing situations related to World of Warships. Despite me knowing a considerable amount of content that was to be coming in the game, I never once broke my NDA. A few months after my leaving, I did release a series of Q&A videos that detailed my thoughts on various questions related to World of Warships. I was critical of elements of wargaming and the remaining staff, but at no point do I believe I was not constructive. I was just honest and was saying what I thought was fair given the questions I was asked. Fast forward to July 2020. I wasn't surprised that nothing particularly special was released for Canada Day. Given the global COVID situation and companies having to adjust to work from home environments, pretty much every gaming company saw projects pushed back or delayed. So let's go further forward to June 2021. Well, we all saw Little White Mouse's review of the Yukon with Chobitsu's section included. The details of the situation were enclosed there, and while I was shocked, I honestly wasn't surprised. Once again, I'd like to state, this is where I heard of the situation that occurred. No internal wargaming staff talked to me about it. Now, it's no surprise to anyone that Chobitsu and I are pretty good friends after meeting during the Anchors Away tour in 2019, where I accidentally surprised him by yelling right behind him. Good times. After the event, we had subsequent conversations and interactions even after I left wargaming. While I wouldn't consider Little White Mouse and I friends to the same level, I believe we share a level of mutual respect that developed during my time as lead for the NACCs. Chobitsu, quite upset about the situation that occurred, and rightly so, talked to me about it and how he believed what had transpired over the last 12 to 16 months. Other NACCs who I remain close with, and who I will not be naming, post-leaving, also talked to me about the situation, sharing further detail with me. Again, no wargaming staff. As we saw the situation progress over the next few days, more and more information came to light. If you're not up to speed with the situation, here's the current timeline according to what I've researched and what I could find. Around June 15th, there was a conversation between Little White Mouse, Chobitsu, and certain NA and Russian staff, to my knowledge. June 24th, right before the ship was released, there was another conversation between Little White Mouse, Chobitsu, and certain NA and Russian staff, to my understanding. June 27th in the afternoon, Little White Mouse publishes her review that includes their detail of the situation as they believe it transpired. From June 24th onwards, various CCs from the regions react on YouTube, Twitch, forums, and Discord. Being quite connected within the community, I watched a lot of these videos and looked to understand the discourse even more. Around the June 25th, there was rumblings that Sub-Octavian had made comments about getting to the bottom of the situation. Unfortunately, I can't find reference to where I heard this anymore. On June 26th, we saw the first apology from Wargaming, which came from Evan in the NA office. For those who don't know, Evan is the regional publishing director for the North American office. He's held multiple roles with Wargaming over the years, and honestly is someone who I really still respect from the NA office. On the 28th, we saw the first communication from the Russian office saying they will let Little White Mouse and Chobitsu design and make an expendable camo to be added to the game. However, they will determine the properties of the camo and will make the final design decisions. This was not received well by almost anyone, with many people being aware that it does not take very long to create an expendable camo design. On June 30th, Nizanao takes the fall for the situation. That is, he admits fault and says the situation is on him. Evan follows up with 2 extra statements, including them working to honor the work that they did, but the details of this was going to be discussed privately with Chobitsu and Little White Mouse, so I don't know the details of what really transpired there. Now, before we get into the meat and potatoes of the situation, I would like to clearly state I will not be throwing any one person under the bus, unlike what Wargaming did with Nizanao. I think the situation was a combination of Wargaming's weaknesses that came together in one perfect storm. Not many of you knew Nizanao, but for those who do, he was an incredibly hardworking and dedicated individual who only ever worked in the best interest of the game and community. You will never be able to convince me that he did anything with malice intent. I also struggle to believe that he did not hand over his ongoing projects appropriately when he made the transition over to the World of Tanks team. Wargaming's decision to ask him to personally own up for the decision reflects on the part of the toxic internal community that WoW really struggles under. I would urge you not to direct your pitchforks at him. I believe in time we will see more evidence that Gneisenau actually acted correctly, and the fault does not lay squarely with him. And in my honest opinion, only maybe 1% was on him. Thinking a lot about the situation for the last few days and sharing my thoughts initially on my Saturday stream, I believe this comes down to what I've always said is Wargaming's two biggest weaknesses: communication and respect. So let's start with the obvious. Communication failed when Gneisenau left the team and the project handed off. At this stage in the project, it had been going on somewhere between 10 and 12 months. I really struggled to think that during that time, Gneisenau never said anything to any other Wargaming NA staff. Daily they have meetings about what everyone is working on, and monthly there's big planning meetings for supporting the next month's key beats, such as holidays or celebrations. But at no point the Yukon project was ever brought up. Over that 10 to 12 month period, several changes also occurred within the project, which included changing the name of the ship, its design elements, and patch and flag, something we've all seen the receipts of thanks to Little White Mouse's review. But at no point the team talked about it? On that note, considering over the time period various changes were made, but somehow no one in the Russian office was aware of the project's scope and who was involved with it, I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. In my opinion, Wargaming was having another typical communication breakdown situation. That or they're trying to hide behind this as an excuse to shift blame to other staff and departments. During my time at Wargaming, they expected you to know something so long as it was written on the internal information database. If you dared ask a question that was related to something written down, they would criticize and belittle you for not knowing, even if finding the information in the system was near impossible, particularly when half the pages either had Russian names or were in Russian. It was a large factor that contributed to my unhappiness before I left. You'd easily spend 30 to 60 minutes looking for an answer and probably not find it, or be attacked by the Russian GPI team for not knowing. It was honestly exhausting. On the other end of the communication, let's talk about Little White Mouse specifically. Almost all discourse I've watched from other CCs surrounding this situation specifically call out Little White Mouse's dedication to the community, the extreme detail and care she puts in a review, and her outstanding character and integrity. Every other CC recognizes Little White Mouse's value to the game and the community, yet no one from the Russian and maybe even NA teams have had a conversation with Little White Mouse and asked her how things are doing in over a year? This absolutely blows my mind. While I know I dropped the ball on occasion when I was handling the NACs during my time, no one went months on end without me checking in on them. Given the obvious size and scope of effort put in by Little White Mouse and Chobitsu, I highly doubt if they were approached, it wouldn't get mentioned by them, so simply no one talked to them. Hell, Chobitsu talked to me about things without prompt after I left Wargaming. And this is specifically directed at Wargaming Russia, in that unless you're a part of that team, getting their respect is near impossible. Little White Mouse being part of the community for over 5 years, releasing over 100 amazing and fair reviews, and to my recollection has never caused drama, yet they don't respect her contributions enough to keep in regular contact with her? I can't help but sit here and shake my head. Wargaming's lack of respect also leans into what I believe is the real reason behind Haberfodder's decision to leave Wargaming NA after about a year and a half. He stated his last day would be July 6th. Given that it's proper to give 2 weeks notice, at latest, that would have made it around June 22nd, where he announced to the Wargaming NA team internally that he was intending to leave, which is way before the Yukon fire was publicly lit. In his leaving message on the NA forums, he basically states that he made the decision to leave to improve his work-life balance. He recognized that, and I quote, he was living to work and not working to live. Given my own personal story at Wargaming, I can totally empathize with this. Working at Wargaming as a CM is not a 9-to-5, Monday to Friday job. I don't think there is 1 week where I work less than 50 to 60 hours during my time. And being salaried, you don't get paid extra for going above and beyond. During my time, upper management did not care or respect your time. I recall one particular instance after running 3 Anchors Away tour events over a long weekend. I was expected to be back in the office on Tuesday after flying home Monday evening. Cammy once received a talking to because he needed to leave 20 minutes early to pick up his child after his wife got unexpectedly delayed. While things may have changed since I left, and I really hope so, I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't. Therefore, I really feel like his leaving and subsequent job opening up was just unfortunate and coincidental timing. To Happer's credit, while he came in with little community management experience, he has done a decent job given the situation he found himself in. Happer, if you hear this, I know we didn't always agree, and consequently, we fell out of touch, but I was really happy to see you prove me wrong in areas, and ultimately, you did the best with what you had. You should be proud of yourself, if that means anything coming from me. Let's lean into a few more particulars surrounding the Yukon, and the fact that besides one nameplate, it did not resemble anything close to what Little White Mouse and Cho proposed. Now, when it comes to ship parameters, I'll grant Wargaming that, for balance reasons, it probably couldn't have been exactly as Mouse proposed, but if anyone is going to design a balanced ship, Mouse has got to be the best chance of making it viable. Wargaming has hid behind the line that they cannot take proposals based off community input due to copyright and IP reasons. Now, this would be a fair point, if they hadn't already done it before. Thunderer, community camos, community patches. The fact that we have Flamu's freaking icon on the Halloween Alaska, which they didn't seek his approval for before it happened. It was only after, when it was noticed and called out, did they gain his permission to use it. So, I'm sorry, but you can't use that as a defense. Evidence of this now being the fact is as of Wednesday the 30th, Evan has released another statement saying they'll be working closely with Little White Mouse and Turbitsu to make amends and to try and implement some of their hard work into the game after all. To me, this feels like they're trying to rebuild a bridge from the burnt and smoldering pieces of the bridge they burned with this whole situation. However, and unfortunately, with most wargaming situations of late, it's better than nothing. So, what do I think needs to happen going forward? Now, I know I've probably burnt my professional bridges with wargaming, coming from my Q&A videos and opinions I've expressed since leaving, coupled with the attitudes of certain wargaming staff towards me, which led to my leaving. That saying, even if I ever did decide I wanted to try and come back to wargaming, it's unlikely they'd consider or hire me. I do have some opinions on what needs to happen for wargaming to improve, because ultimately, I still enjoy the game and care about the community. I mean, why else would I still actively play the game over 40 hours per month? Now, communication, you gotta fix this. This includes not chastising your staff for asking questions or seeking clarifications on points that may not be clear. Most of the items for ships are written in Russian and then translated, often pretty poorly into English. It's not surprising that sometimes things just don't make sense. It's infuriating having to hunt for a considerable amount of times to try and find an answer to something that someone could answer very quickly. You also are destroying the morale and confidence of your regional teams by attacking them when they ask something. You're directly breaking down your own communication lines. But this also extends into your player communities. You do not have to be right all the time. You just need to be honest. I replied to a tweet surrounding Evan's initial apology, saying, "This is the first apology I've seen written by Wargaming that actually comes across genuine. Evan is a strong pillar of reason and probably the only one left, unfortunately." And I hate to say it, but I really meant this, and many people were in agreement with me. So many of the given communications come as sterile or unhuman. Work on your empathy, your understanding of the player base. Give us the opportunity to give you our goodwill and to restore our faith. You seem so adamant on refusing to be seen as wrong that you're not willing to reap the reward of being human with your players. Needless, this also leans into being more respectful to your player base. While a player boycott will never have the impact a player group will think it has, you stand to gain so much more if you offer your community some respect. The old adage of you lure more bees with honey and all that. Put your trust in your teams. Your staff, both locally and in regional offices, are only ever trying to act with the best of intentions for the game and community. Hell, they're kind of getting paid to do as much and they don't want to lose their jobs. Questioning and doubting them at every single turn just creates friction and fractures in your team. Support and uplift your teams to succeed, and funnily enough, you're more likely to see success. Being consistently shot down before even starting something is a great way to see ideas never raised again. Lastly, you need to weed out the rot. You have a core team members that are directly involved and create issues within the game and within other teams. If you're not willing to provide them training in soft skills like communication, empathy, and conflict resolution, it's time to hire people with these skills and move those staff away from public-facing roles. While these people may have done the game a good service in the past, if they're now creating more problems than what they're solving, it's time to make that assessment. Wargaming, I have no doubt you're listening to this video, and I have no doubt you know what situations I'm referring. It became very obvious, even more so after I left, that your interest was protecting your veteran staff rather than resolving legitimate areas of concern and complaints. I never wanted to leave, but I really wasn't given a choice. I truly believe, had these issues been addressed when I raised them while I was still at Wargaming, I wouldn't have left. But in saying that, it's not too late. You can resolve them, and you can improve your staff retention, particularly in the NA office, which, as I mentioned, seems to be the punching bag for Russia most of the time. Doing this, in time, I believe, will also lead to a healthier and stronger community, which is ultimately all I've ever wanted for the players, staff, and game alike. And I hope that's what you want. Thank you everyone for sticking through this video and listening to my opinions. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment section below. If you want to see spontaneous game content from me, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. I'll hopefully talk to you guys real soon or see you on a stream. Bye for now.
Problem solved, sir. Torpedoes, direct front. Engine boost activated. Our victory is in sight.